This was a story I wasn't sure whether I would tell, but now it's become clear that I can't not. Some of you may have heard when Sharp was mayor, he had these annual birthday parties. And they were intimate affairs of 2000 in the Robert Treat Hotel. And for 7 or 8 straight years, I went loyally every year. But then he scheduled one on a Wednesday night, my tennis night. I said, you know, I've kept that night kind of sacrosanct. I didn't go to performances at the Art Center on that night. I was going to skip out this time. I said, you know, he'll never know. 2,000 people. Well, he knew. And he went 6 months without talking to me, without coming to Art Center meetings. And can you guess who played the Henry Kissinger shuttle diplomacy role to breach this gap? And Gus did it, and he did it so brilliantly. Do you think Gus would have worn a tie if he were here today? No way. I didn't have the courage not to do it, but I shouldn't have, because in deference to him. So I want to start with a question. How many of you remember the movie The Hunt for Red October? Well, in 1990, the year that movie came out, for those of you who don't know, it's a submarine movie. And there's a Russian submarine, Soviet submarine, captained by Sean Connery, playing the captain. And there's a fleet of American submarines. And there is a whip-smart, wiseacre young CIA agent working on behalf of the US. Now, Gus came into a meeting one day in 1990, so enthusiastic about this movie. Larry, you have got to see The Hunt for Red October. So I listened to Gus, and I did see it yesterday. It took me 23 years, but thinking about today and thinking about Gus, I said, you know, I really want to see that movie to see why Gus wanted me to see it. Now, as Ruth pointed out, Gus was in Army intelligence. It wasn't actually until I met Gus that I realized that Army intelligence wasn't an oxymoron. I watched the movie yesterday, and my first thought was maybe the reason Gus wanted me to see this movie was there was this black guy who was running the sonar on the American submarine. And he was really good. He was smarter than everyone around him. He could read everything that was going on in that Russian submarine, including hearing them sing. And, you know, it was a subordinate part, but the guy was smart, and he was smarter. The captain depended on him. But I said, no, this was too small and inconsequential for Gus. There had to be another reason. And then, as the movie evolved, I began to see the reason. The movie was made in 1990, but it took place in 1984. Ronald Reagan was president. We were still very much in the Cold War. The wall hadn't come down in Berlin. Before perestroika, before glasnost. And there were hotheads on both sides of this issue. The submarine was captained by this Soviet guy, Sean Connery, who wanted to defect to the US and give over the technology of the submarine. The problem was the Soviets knew that, and they were trying to blow him up. And the Americans thought that might be true. That's what the CIA guy, Alec Baldwin, and almost unrecognizably young Alec Baldwin, he knew that the guy was trying to defect because he had figured it out. But the rest of the American military thought that maybe he was coming to launch a nuclear attack as a maverick on the northeast of the United States. So the Americans were trying to blow him up, and the Russians were trying to blow him up. And the captain and the young American CIA agent played kind of a chess game with each other, each so carefully trying to dope out what the other was thinking, each 2 or 3 steps ahead of the captain and head of the Navy and everybody else in their thinking. And I came to see That's why Gus liked the movie. He always tried to see it from the other guy's point of view. He was always 2 or 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He was always there to diffuse the tough situation, to figure it out. You know, Mary used the word moderate, Junius used the word moderate. He moderated, but he always moderated from a point of view, and he always got what he wanted in the end. Let me bridge here to the Art Center. Unlike the medical school, well, I shouldn't say, I don't really know much about the medical school or the airport, but I will tell you that those of us who had conceived the Art Center, including Sharp James, we wanted to do the right thing. I was a child of the Civil Rights Movement. That's where I got politicized. And I felt so lucky to be head of this big, growing institution, but also have a real chance to make social change. We always talked about NJPAC as an art center with a social mission. The problem was we didn't know how to execute that mission. Our values were there, the dream was there, the vision was there, but we didn't really know how to execute it. And of course, that's where Gus came into the picture. I don't think I have to tell anyone here that in planning and design and acoustics and in creating an executive team, we went for the very best at NJPAC, no compromises. Well, we did the same thing in going for somebody to teach us how to execute our social vision. Gus did that. He did it in design, he did it in construction. Sharp, you amaze me, but you hit the number right on the head. 46% of 3,000 construction jobs went to minorities and women, but mostly minorities. He did it by going eye to eye with IATSE. Let me see if I get this right. The International Association of Stage and Theatrical Employees. Tell me. Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees. So these are the good jobs at the Art Center. I'm not talking about the security jobs, and I'm not talking about the secretarial jobs. I'm talking about high-paid jobs of people running that backstage, high-skilled, high-paid jobs. And Gus and I went to the leadership of IATSE and said, you integrate that union when this art center opens, or you will not be running this building. We're going to go to Plan B. It was a minor problem. We didn't have a Plan B. But I must say, the IATSE people were great. And they said, we understand that. We're going to work at that. Gus's son was the first African-American in New Jersey to carry an IATSE card. And we integrated the union. And I will tell you, right up through 2 seasons ago, when he wasn't even working for the Art Center anymore, Gus demanded from Ross Richard, our Vice President of Operations, who's here today, he demanded a report every year to show how many hours were worked backstage by Caucasian and minorities, no longer minority because it was 50-50. And I'm very proud to say that, that we pulled that off. I'm going to end with something that Kay mentioned. It was not a big deal or huge decision to put Gus's name up in the rotunda of the Art Center. So next time you're at NJPAC and you're in the rotunda, when you look at the plaque that has the architect and the engineer and the construction company and Gail Thompson, you all remember her? Right there, it was Gus Heningburg, affirmative action consultant. And to me, that was the easiest decision in the world because there are other art centers that have good design. There are other art centers that have good acoustics, not quite so good as NJPAC, but there are other art centers that have good acoustics. There are other art centers that put great performances on the stage. There's that place across the river named after a tunnel and our 16th president. But what NJPAC is known for internationally is that it is everyone's art center. And not only is it open to everyone, but everyone wants to be there. And let me tell you, folks, that was Gus Heningburg. He did that. He taught us how to do that. And for that, not just his name on the plaque, but that value and that spirit in NJPAC will live forever. Thank you.